This is an online Catholic Bible study program produced by J.C. For Me. Lesson 1, Salvation History. Prepared by J. Aloysius Ignatius, Father Gerard J. D. Silva and Father Trevor de Souza, OFM. Summary. In this lesson you will be given a chronological overview of the history of the Bible, also called as salvation history or the history of salvation. Understanding the history of salvation is a preview to understanding the Bible. 1. What is salvation? Salvation refers to the deliverance of humanity, or an individual, from sin and its consequences, leading to a state of freedom, happiness, and security. Salvation history begins with creation, the story of Adam and Eve, and the fall. The fall refers to the original sin committed by Adam and Eve, through which they lost divine friendship and preternatural gifts, such as infused knowledge, the inclination to avoid sin, and bodily immortality, not only for themselves but for all their descendants. As stated in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, CCC, the account of the fall in Genesis 3 uses figurative language, but affirms a primeval event, a deed that took place at the beginning of the history of man, CCC 390. Salvation history is the unfolding story of how God intervenes to rescue humanity from the isolation caused by sin and death, restoring us to union with Him. 2. Jesus Christ at the center of salvation history. At the center of salvation history is Christ, who serves as the interpretive key. All of salvation history is rooted in Christ and the cross. Everything preceding His coming points toward Him, and everything that follows flows from Him. In a profound way, salvation history is both past and present. The story of salvation is ongoing, it envelopes us, and we are active participants in God's plan. By understanding God's actions throughout history and His relationship with humanity, we gain deeper insight into the very nature of God. Salvation history provides the foundation for the Church's entire supernatural mission and work. It directly shapes our lives and our mission as members of the Church, calling us to be part of God's unfolding plan of redemption. 3. Division of salvation history. Salvation history can be divided into 12 distinct historical periods. Assigning each book of the Bible to its corresponding period provides valuable context, helping us understand what is being communicated to different people at various points in history. 4. Creation and history of the early world from up to 2000 BC. Salvation history begins with the first covenant God made with Adam and Eve, focusing on a single family. In this covenant, God invites humanity to trust Him and grants them the gift of paradise. However, like Adam, we all tend to turn away from God's love. 5. Patriarchs from 2000 BC to 1675 BC. God establishes a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, promising Abraham that his descendants will grow into a great nation and inherit a land flowing with milk and honey. During this time, the covenant with a single family expands to include a tribe. 6. Exodus from 1675 BC to 1275 BC. God sends Moses to deliver the tribes of Israel from slavery in Egypt. This event, known as the Exodus, marks the liberation of Israel after 400 years of bondage. Through the Exodus, God demonstrates His power, showing that He is greater than any ruler or nation. His love for His people is unwavering, and He will always act to rescue them. 7. Wanderings from 1275 BC to 1220 BC. After their rescue from Egypt, God establishes a new covenant with the entire people of Israel. However, in response, the Israelites begin to complain, turn away from God, and even worship idols. Despite God's guidance, they fail to trust and obey Him on their journey to the Promised Land. 8. Judges from 1220 BC to 1050 BC. Now, the Israelites trust God enough to enter the Promised Land. They conquer the land, and the people of Israel become a nation. During this time, the nation is led by a series of judges, including Joshua, Samson, and Deborah. 9. United Kingdom from 1050 BC to 930 BC. After a time, the nation of Israel demands to be ruled by a king rather than by God. Despite warning them of the consequences, God allows them to have their way. This period is marked by just 3 kings, Saul, David, and Solomon. During this time, God also establishes a new covenant, this one with David and the kingdom of Israel. 10 separated kingdom from 930 BC to 722 BC. When Solomon's son became king, he ruled harshly, causing a rebellion that resulted in the division of the kingdom into 2, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom, called Israel, had Samaria as its capital, while the southern kingdom, called Judah, had Jerusalem as its capital. The 2 kingdoms continued to exist for a time, but they were in constant conflict. Over the years, most of their kings turned away from God. Though they initially trusted and followed him, they eventually led their people into idolatry, worshipping other gods. This cycle of faithfulness followed by rebellion repeated itself throughout the history of both kingdoms. 11 Exile from 722 BC to 538 BC. Eventually, both kingdoms turned to evil, and as a result, God allowed them to face the consequences of their actions. First, Israel was conquered by the Assyrians, and then Judah was conquered by the Babylonians. The Israelites were scattered across foreign lands, while most of the Judeans were exiled to Babylon. This period is known as the Babylonian exile or Babylonian captivity. Despite the devastation, God reassured his people through the prophets that this destruction was not the end. He promised that the exile would be temporary, and he would rescue them, returning them to the promised land to fulfill all of his promises. 12 Return from 538 BC to 323 BC. During the exile, the people of Israel renewed their relationship with God. God fulfilled his promise when the Persians conquered Babylon, allowing his people to return to Judea, Judah. They rebuilt the temple and renewed their covenant with God. This serves as a reminder that God always keeps his promises. He never abandons us and is always ready to save us. 13 Maccabean revolt 323 BC to 63 BC. After their return from exile, the people once again turned away from God, placing their trust in other nations. This led to Judea being conquered by the Greeks, who oppressed the Judeans and desecrated the temple. In response, the Maccabees, a family devoted to God and his covenant, led a revolt. Their actions eventually resulted in a Roman takeover, setting the stage for the arrival of Jesus. 14 Jesus from 3 BC to 30 AD. Jesus is the new covenant, a covenant made with everyone. Each previous covenant in salvation history involved God saying, "I love you, and I want you to trust me." But Jesus goes further, saying, "I love you so much that I will die for you." We turned away from life and love, choosing death through sin. But God reaches into that death, removes it, and restores the life and love he always intended for us. 15 Acts from 30 AD onwards. This period of salvation history reveals how the early Christians responded to the new covenant. They recognized the gift of salvation, life and love, and they went out sharing the good news with everyone. Nothing could stop them. The good news is that God's love is infinite and unconditional, as he loved us even while we were sinners. Like the apostles and early Christians, we are called to respond to God's gift, and this is the beautiful and amazing part of salvation history. The story in Acts continues with each of us, as we strive to live out the new covenant that God has made with us. 16 Why is salvation history important? Knowledge of God's saving plan is not just interesting information, it reveals the deeper truth of who God is. Understanding his actions throughout history and his relationship with humanity helps us grasp his true nature. In turn, knowing who God is illuminates what he has done in salvation history. As a result, salvation history forms the foundation of the entire supernatural work and mission of the Catholic Church. It directly shapes our lives and mission within the Church. 17 Conclusion. The truths of salvation history are among the highest and most practical truths we can know. For the past 2000 years, Catholic spirituality and ministry have been grounded in them. The history of salvation itself is evangelizing. It is the gospel, the good news of God's saving actions. Understanding who we were in the beginning and what we will become at the end of time is crucial, as it sheds light on the mystery of the human condition. Salvation history answers the question of who we are as human beings, why we have unfulfilled longings, and how we can find peace in our restless hearts. Most importantly, without understanding salvation history, we cannot effectively share who Jesus Christ is with others or convey what he means for their lives. Thank you for viewing and listening to Lesson 1. Kindly place your feedback in the comments. Kindly subscribe and share. God bless you.